Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody. So welcome. Thank you all for your patience for coming tonight. I'm Mercedes. So this lecture is going to be a variety of different topics. I'm kind of going to go over a lot of things in the broad sense. I just want to let you guys know I'm going to try to make this as engaging as possible. I was not a fan of school. I didn't like having to sit here listening to people, so I'm going to try to be interesting enough that you're going to want to pay attention. And before I go forward, I just want to let you guys know that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare professional. So I hope that you gather information from this session, but please don't take everything I say literally, or if you do wish to move forward and kind of change your lifestyle or dieting, I ask that you see your doctor if you're using any sort of medication, stuff like that. So a little bit about me. As I said, I'm Mercedes. I'm a holistic nutritionist as well as a yoga instructor here in Savannah. I moved here about a year ago. I'm originally from New York. I'm really passionate about food education and supporting local food growth. I actually work at a farm here, Organic Organics. They're featured at the farmers market every Saturday. They're also in Brighter Day. And I'm just really passionate about food. I wonder if you're interested in the picture of the chicken, and I'll get into that a little bit. But it all kind of started with this chicken here and the name of my business, which is The Holistic Hen. So a bit of my journey here. As I said, I grew up in New York, primarily an Italian family. So what does that mean? That's a lot of meat, cheese, bread. So that was my diet. And some frozen vegetables in between that. But growing up, I'd say in the 90s, our plates definitely weren't as green as they are now, or there wasn't as much information prevalent during that time. So that's how I kind of grew up eating. Once I got a little bit older, my mom kind of got more educated. At the time, she could not even boil water. She was not the best cook. But as we grew up, she got much better at it. She looked into it more so, how food affects behavioral issues. My brother and I both have ADHD, so how does that kind of coincide? What are we eating and how does that affect our behavior? So that's kind of my background growing up. In 2018, I was in college, graduating, and I was just so sick. I was always very sick, a lot of kind of stomach issues, had really bad acne, just hormonal cycle, things like that. And I thought that was pretty normal. Everyone's bloated sometimes. Oh, I'm young. I'm supposed to have acne, things like this and that. But as I graduated and moved on in my career, it was preventing me, almost inhibiting me from living my life in any sort of normal way. I would have just like horrific burning sensations in my stomach. So I looked into this. 2019. Doctors said, oh, we can't find anything wrong with you. So that's when I did my own research. That's when I took it upon myself. I said, you know what? I know something's wrong. You know, I'm going to take this into my own hands. And so that's when I looked into my elimination diets and the Whole30. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a type of elimination diet where you basically take most things out: alcohol, sugar, dairy, bread. You take it out and you reset for 30 days, and then you slowly begin to bring things back into your diet and see if there's any sort of change in that. So that was kind of the catalyst, the starting point to me learning about food and how it affected the body and how it affected my mood, truly everything, and how a holistic approach really changed my life. Moving on to 2020, I completed my certification in holistic nutrition. I got my certification as a yoga instructor. So I had done that since 2020. COVID was really challenging for a lot of reasons. A lot of people lost their jobs, so I kind of took that time to focus inward, focus on myself, self-growth. And so now I'm here in Savannah. I teach yoga classes throughout the city. I have business cards I can give out at the end if anyone's interested. And I teach and talk like I am with you guys today. So that Whole30, that really shaped, and that was kind of the catalyst. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to get into the topic of this conversation. And I figured, coffee, we're in a coffee house, why not? I used to take my coffee with whole milk and a ton of sugar every day, and that was kind of like my go-to. I would rely on that. That was what got me through the day. The first thing I woke up, I drank that. So when I didn't have that, when I had to switch to just plain black coffee, I wanted to kill myself. It was just, the first week of that was just really brutal, but I was like, I'm going to push through, I'm going to try, I'm not a quitter. So I did the Whole30 days, and now still to this day, I can't drink it with milk anymore or sugar. It's just like, it's a thing I set with myself, and I was like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not going to do it ever again. So if you're like me, if coffee was a huge part of your life or is a big part of your life now, just a show of hands, does everyone drink coffee daily? There we go. Yeah, more than 1 cup? 2 cups? 2? Me too. And so I have nothing against coffee. That's not my concern. That's not what this is about. I think coffee is fun. But coffee is a huge prevalent thing in our community, our society. Just on TikTok alone, which is, I know, a little bit of a younger crowd, younger demographic, but TikTok, 28.9 billion views for videos related to coffee. I don't know if I'm sure you guys remember the beginning of COVID, everyone was doing that whipped coffee with the sugar and stuff. So that was a huge thing during COVID. Everyone would post videos of them making this very specific coffee. It was milk and sugar whipped up with coffee on top. And again, I have no problem with coffee. There's no issue with that. But what are we putting in our coffee? And if we could use this cup of coffee almost as a symbol of our micro habits, what are we doing? How are we going to change our lives each and every day, change our habits to benefit our health in the long run? So, let's move on to milk. Plant-based milks are, I think, the biggest trend. It's the biggest kind of like plant-based movement that I've seen. You can truly get any milk nowadays, any sort of seed or grain or nut can be milk, it can be turned into milk. But the biggest ones I've seen, the biggest brand varieties have been almond oat, coconut, soy, hemp, and cashew. I'm sure if we went behind the counter over here, we would see a variety of those milks as well. I don't know anyone personally that drinks cow milk anymore, which is fine. And it seems to be, these are the most popular, almond and oat, which is great. However, there's a lot of debate on if one is better than the other. So my concern is not so much the milk itself, but what's in the milk. What ingredients are kind of encased around this milk? And that's what we're going to be diving into a little bit more today. But before we do that, before we pick which milk is the best, I want to just discuss ingredients and why they're so important. And that's what our food is made out of. Unless you're picking up an orange off of the shelf, if someone's handing you something pre-made, a drink, something from the shelf, something from the refrigerator, that is packaged food and or processed food, and more cases or not, there's a lot more ingredients in there than we necessarily need. So let's talk about it. I made a list here of ingredients that should be avoided. You can see here, I'll give you a second to turn it off, but right off the jump here, we have artificial colorings, artificial flavoring, so these would be like your yellow number 5s, your blue number 1s, hydrogenated oil, so canola oils. Canola oil is also called rapeseed oil. Any sort of vegetable oil, corn oils. DHT is also a preservative. MSG here is a preservative, and we're going to get a little bit deeper into all of these things. But if we read any of these on the back of the package, my recommendation is to just put it right back down. We have dextrose, sucrose. These are all types of sugars, which we really don't need and can lead to a lot of health concerns and risks. But the one I'm most excited to talk about is natural flavor. So there's been a lot of debate on this ingredient. You see it nowadays, it's extremely common in truly everything. If you walk into the store right now and you just pick something random up, it's going to say natural flavors in the ingredients list. And what is that? I mean, I think when it first came out, we're all like, oh, it's natural. Okay, that's fine, that's healthy. Let me put it in my cart, that makes sense. But as time has gone on, there's been more research on this topic, and natural flavors, turns out, are not so natural. However, the food industry is extremely good at advertising and marketing things for us to assume that it's healthy, when really it's not. They're hiding things now. If I go back a slide, the MSG, that's now categorized under several different names. So it's no longer called MSG. If you go in the store and you read another thing, turns out there's a lot of different names for MSG now. So if we get back to our natural flavors, they're not actually natural. They're created in a lab, similar to how artificial flavors are made, but they are derived from natural sources. So basically, it's from any sort of fruit, vegetable, animal. They will take this flavoring, this essence, but then they can add up to 80 to 100 different preservatives, chemicals into this one ingredient and label it as natural flavor. They do the same thing in the cosmetic industry. If you know the word fragrance, that one word has about 100, can have about 100 different ingredients in that one word. But they can do it this way because back in the day when they were discussing different smells, different fragrances, they said, well, this is our secret formula. This is what makes our smell special, unique to our brand. So if they label fragrance, okay, that's their specific fragrance, and we can't know what's in it because that's their secret recipe. Well, now they found a loophole and they're doing the same thing with natural flavors. There is a difference, however. So if you pick up a food item and it's organic and you see the word natural flavor, it needs to comply with organic regulations. So it'll be a non-GMO, so it won't be genetically modified, which is good. It won't be processed in sewage sludge or iodized radiation, so it can't contain synthetic solvents or preservatives. So those are a couple of big checklists. So some of the items banned from organic natural flavors include, and you can read them off here, BHT, BHA, absorbent 80, which are also preservatives linked to a lot of different health issues, health concerns. However, just because it says organic, that means it's derived from something organic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is organic. So that's a big thing now. They just came out with that information. So we're talking about organic, we're talking about non-GMO. What does that mean? So I'm sure that we've seen these two labels in the grocery store before. You'll see the USDA seal or the non-GMO project seal. And usually they can be coexisting, so they'll be hand in hand right next to each other. Sometimes something is just non-GMO projects. If it is organic, that means automatically it's not genetically modified. So this one cannot exist without this. However, this can exist without that. So what does that mean? You know, when we talk about, you guys can come and sit. So the coffee is closed, but we're doing a lecture. But if you want to listen in on it, you're more than welcome.
Sorry, can you just come up with your question?
Oh, there's one back here. That's fine. You don't need to do it all. Okay. So what does that mean, non-GMO? So it means that it's not genetically modified. So we think that, okay, if it's not genetically modified, automatically that's a win. Let me put it in my cart. Not necessarily the case. If something is non-GMO, yes, that means it's not genetically modified. However, synthetic pesticides are still allowed in non-GMO products. Roundup, you know what you spray on your lawn, that's allowed. Sewage sludge is allowed. Antibiotics being used is allowed. So it would be my personal recommendation to stick with the organic. If it's non-GMO, honestly, that doesn't really mean much to me. It's still not the healthiest thing for you. As you can see in the organic tab, none of these things are allowed. Moving on. So I just threw a lot of information at you guys. There's a lot going on. So you might have to ask yourself, do I have to buy all my produce organic? We talked about, you know, packaged goods here, stuff you buy on the shelf, stuff you buy from the refrigerator, you know, in the grocery store. So I would say, yes, you have to buy organic packaged food. However, do you have to buy produce organic? And that is up in the air, and I'll explain why. So, not necessarily. The EWG, the Environmental Working Group, puts out a list every year. It's called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So, right here is the list for the year 2022, the year that we're in. So, Clean 15 means that these are the least sprayed food items. So you can go into the store and buy a non-organic avocado, and you're going to be all right. They do minimal spraying, minimal harm to the body. So we have avocados, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papayas, peas, asparagus. So really just a slew of different items here. Watermelon is awesome because, you know, we're getting close to the summer here. Everyone wants to go to Kroger, buy watermelon. So you're going to be set if it's not organic. If we look at the Dirty Dozen list, strawberries is number one on the list for the 5th year in a row. I've been checking this since 2018. So strawberries are extremely sprayed, mostly because they're so delicious, bugs go after them all the time. So they spray them for pesticides, they spray them for their coloring to keep them kind of preserved, that big, beautiful red strawberry that you see in the store. I would say out of all of these, you always want to buy your strawberries organic. Otherwise, you're just eating a lot of toxins. Next up is spinach. You have your kale, your collards, all these leafy greens, apples, cherries, pears, celery, and tomatoes. So you want to think about all of these things kind of have that very penetrative skin. You know, peaches are, you can bruise them really easily. So if you think about it in that way, anything that's kind of going to get damaged easily, you're going to spray for it, which is really interesting. And if you guys are interested in either taking a picture of this or looking it up on the web, it's EWG, and they have a whole website, and they talk about a lot of things, and they do a lot of petitions to change the way that the food industry is run. So we're talking about our produce, we're talking about our dirty dozen. Okay, so how would I know? How would I know if I walked in to the grocery store? Okay, I want to get, I don't know, an organic peach, but I don't know, it's not in the organic section. So everyone's familiar with these, right? Sometimes they get stuck to the fruit, you accidentally eat it, peel it off, and put it on your steak. So that's a PLU number. And so each number means something different. It's always this first number here. So you see the 3, the 4, the 9. So 9 means organic. So if it's number 9 in the front, that means it's an organic piece of fruit. You can go ahead and put that in your cart. A 4 means that it's genetically modified. So it's genetically grown. You know, conventionally grown, sprayed, again with pesticides. Number 3 is actually interesting. So number 3 is used with iodized irradiation. So basically what that means, it's grown under those red grow lights. And what that does is it electronically pasteurizes the fruit, which leads to lack of nutrition. So if you were to compare the nutritious value of a organic orange versus, you know, a number 3 orange, the organic orange would have 2 times the amount of nutrients in it versus the number 3. So I always find that really fascinating, and I love sharing that fact, just because I feel like that's not really common knowledge, and I think that's like a little trick in the grocery store that you can use. You're welcome. Have a great day. Okay. So we're getting through this here. We're learning a lot of different things. So we have a lot of choices. That's really, at the end of the day, one of the big things is you're going in the store and there's 6 different almond milks you can choose from. You know, every pasta is made out of a different thing. Lentil, quinoa, chickpea, you know, gluten-free, non-gluten-free. So I like to follow this stoplight analogy. So this is by Dr. Michael Greger. He is the author of How Not to Die. It's a phenomenal book, and I have him and a few other authors at the end of the presentation that you can always write down. But I've learned so much. They're really pioneers in the functional medicine field. So he gives this breakdown. So red light foods, these are going to be your processed, your packaged foods. So these are the once in a while foods. And I just want to preface this by saying that no food is bad necessarily. I think we're all, you know, privileged enough to pick and choose what food we want to put into our body. So I call this the good food. It's good, but there's always better, right? So it's good, better, best. Your yellow light foods are going to be, you know, a little bit higher up on the scale. And then we get to our green light foods. These are our go-ahead. These are our whole foods, our produce, are fruits and vegetables. You want to have like the least processed, the least packaging, those types of foods. So with that in mind, we're going to come back to the beginning, our almond milk. This is what we talked about initially. So everything that I've spoken about thus far, I wanted to show you 3 different examples of almond milks. Like I said, we have so many choices. How do you pick? So these are 3 different, and I wanted to play a little bit of a game. So I wanted to see what you guys thought. What would be the best one? I know this one's a little bit harder to see. So I can read this one out. It's almond milk made from water, almonds, calcium carbonate, sunflower lecithin, sea salt, natural flavor, locust bean gum, yellow gum, potassium, citric. So, of all 3 of these, which ones do we think is the best? And you can just lift the finger. I'm not going to call it anyone that's silly. Or shout it out. What do we think is the best? We have 2, a 3, a 3, a 3. Okay, so mostly 3s. You would be right. And so number 3, and I'll show you what the brands are. So number 3 is actually almond milk. It's a fantastic brand. I haven't really seen it around here. They typically sell it in Whole Foods. Or you can always get it online too. But it's a fantastic brand. They really just have what you need, which is the best thing. Like you only want what you need, right? So for an almond milk, you just need water, almonds, and salt. The reason why this is number 1 is because this is organic, whereas this one was not. But so this is our best, this is our better, and then this would be our good. There's a lot of things in here that we don't necessarily need. As we spoke about earlier, the natural flavors. I'm happy nobody picked that. Thank you for listening. So we have our natural flavor in there, and then there's a lot of gums here, which are thickening agents. Kind of helps to, if you want to. I'm sure they put these in if they want to make some sort of latte or smoothie. It really thickens the almond milk, making it act more so like a regular fat or milk. However, these aren't necessarily bad, but they're not, as I said, needed, and some of these gums have been known to make people have digestive problems. If you experience a lot of bloating after drinking things like this, I would say it's probably because of the gum. And sunflower lecithin is also not the greatest. If you do have sunflower oil, the best is to have expeller pressed. So this is our list. And so our almond milk came in number 1, our milk first, milk almonds is number 2, and then Califia farms for number 3. So let's go to our next one. So we talked about almond. We'll come over to oat. I'd say, I think it's pretty neck and neck. The popularity of these 2 types of milks. However, I'm allergic to almonds, so I'm always going to go for an oat milk. So we have our choices here. Can everyone see this bottom one? I know it's a little hard to read. So our bottom one is an oat-based water oats, low uric acid, rapeseed oil, contains 2% or less of disodium phosphate, calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate, sea salt, dicalcium phosphate, riboflavin, vitamin A, vitamin B2, and vitamin B12. What do we think? 1, 2, or 3 is going to be our list. 2. Yeah, see, you guys know my tricks already. So, let's see. You were right. Number 2 is the healthiest. That's again going to be our milk. I just love saying that word. It's so fun. But again, it only has 3 ingredients. Whereas oatmeal comes in number 2. That's going to be down here. And the reason for it is the rapeseed oil also also known as canola oil, not the best. It also has a lot of different kind of products in here. Most of these are vitamins, vitamin, but almost not needed. At the end of the day, they put these in here because they're used to kind of having to supplement our diet and our vitamin intake because people don't eat properly. But if you were to eat properly, if you want an oat milk, you just need oats and water. And then our planet oat came in last for our isonium phosphate as well, stabilizer, our gum in there, and so forth. So we've been talking about a lot of healthy things and a lot of plant-based stuff, but when I think of plant-based initially or food that's targeted towards vegans or vegetarians, I think about stuff like this, kind of replacement things. So we have our turkey, or nut, and our papaya. These are plant-based foods. This is a mock ham with a black bean burger and some shredded mozzarella. I know you can't see the ingredients on the screen, but it has a lot of the items that we've talked about. So that's kind of like the whole thing. It's very much so just because something is plant-based doesn't mean that it's healthy for us, and that's why we need to look at the ingredients of it. This isn't me going after any of these things. It's just if you have the choice between something like this or different brands, go to the different brands. The whole point is to have to read the ingredients list. We just see, that name and go, oh, it's plant-based, so that's good for me. All right, let me put it in my cart. And a lot of people do this. You think of black bean burger, if you're vegetarian or not, if you're like, oh, I want to try this black bean burger, I'm having too much meat, too much protein. There's always going to be a million choices. So if you take one thing away from our chat, it's to just read the ingredients list. And with that, we come full circle to our micro habits here. So these are the things I was talking about in the beginning of our talk. These little things, little micro habits, not using the whole milk in the coffee, not adding the sugar. So little things you can do throughout your day, and these habits will eventually, over time, change themselves. So we all know the big ones: get sleep, hydrate. Those are pretty standard. I want to talk a little bit about things we can add to our diet. I've been kind of saying everything that we should be taking away, so I'm going to close out by talking about things that we should add. So, I didn't have that in. So our seeds are phenomenal. They're full of antioxidants. They're a great source of fiber, protein, your pumpkin, your flax, your chia, your sunflower seeds. And I love them. They're the easiest thing ever. You throw it on top of a salad, a smoothie, and your oatmeal in the morning. You just take some in your hands. So seeds and nuts are going to be like the number one thing that you should just add to your diet. No matter what your diet looks like right now, if you just add some seeds in, automatically you're going to go from good to better. Continuing on with that, I'm going to put this in, probiotics. So these are going to be our fermented foods. Sometimes we think about a probiotic as something we take in a pill form, which is fine. However, probiotics, if you eat it in a food, the fiber helps to digest a little bit better, and this helps with our digestion, our immunity. So fermented foods, if you guys don't know, that would be considered miso, egg, pickles, beer, kimchi, yogurt, and sauerkraut. And this is going to help our overall gut health, which is pretty much the epicenter of our health in general. So if you have a healthy gut, everything else kind of falls in line. Whereas if you don't have your healthy gut, that's what in the beginning of my story, the whole issue was I had leaky gut, which is there's almost like a perforation or a rip in your stomach lining. So all the food that you start to digest, it goes into your bloodstream. And then your bloodstream doesn't recognize what it is because it's not the form that it's used to seeing, so it starts to attack it. A lot of people I think have leaky gut and they don't even know it. If you suffer from headaches, bloating, stomach pain, brain fog, any sort of tiredness, sluggishness, overall it's going to start in your gut, your road to recovery. So incorporating these as well. I'm always a huge fan of pickles, yogurt. You can put your seeds in your yogurt and get a double whammy. And third thing up would be herbs. So herbs and spices. These are antioxidant powerhouses. So not only do they taste delicious, they're probably the number one thing if you add it to your diet. It would really benefit you in multiple ways. So it's full of antioxidants, it's antimicrobial and antifungal. There's a variety of different herbs. Brighter Day has a beautiful display of different spices and herbs that you can check out. And these, as I said, not only boost flavor, but also our immune system. If we're concerned about getting sick, I mean, I know we went through the whole 2 years of being worried about being sick. So incorporating our herbs is always a huge thing. And last but not least, if I could have a closing statement, it would probably be this. So I know I threw a lot of information at you quickly. I appreciate everybody's time. The 90-10 rule, this is used by a lot of different people in the healthcare fields. It's a simple guideline to structure your day-to-day diet, or if you want to do your weekly diet, your monthly diet. So 90% of what you're consuming should be, your whole foods, your healthy foods, your produce, your fruits and vegetables, your healthy carbs, your proteins. The 10%, the remaining percent, can be, animal byproducts, your dairy. Maybe you want to go get Ben and Jerry's with your family. You're, having a night in, you want to have some popcorn, processed foods, anything like that. But that's truly what I try to live by myself. So if you're doing the right thing 90% of the time, you can have, a little bit of fun, a little bit of lenience with yourself, participate in life the way that you want to. And so what is the point of all of this? What's the point of all of what I'm saying? Maybe for younger people, it's like, oh, well, I'm young now and I feel okay and everything's good. Maybe we're starting to feel a little bit of ailment, a little bit, arthritis, or it's not as easy to wake up in the morning. This is all preventative care as well as our day-to-day care. So I have a friend that's in the audience who's an esthetician, and she compares this like sunscreen. So if you start wearing sunscreen now, then in the long run, you're going to benefit in multiple ways. And the same can be said for starting to take care of yourself young or wherever you're at. Also, to this point is there's a book by Dr. Jeffrey Bland called The Disease Delusion. He's a phenomenal author. He's been compared to the father of functional medicine, but he wrote this book and he talks a little bit about epigenetics and how our diet, our environment play a role. So if your family line has any sort of issues, cancers, high blood pressure, diabetes, anything like that, he talks about that in the book and basically proves that if you change your lifestyle, your habits, what you're putting into your body, how you're spending your time, then something that you may be predisposed to doesn't necessarily mean that's your outcome. That's a guarantee. He's a phenomenal author, so if you guys want to get that book, I invite you to do so. So that's Dr. Jeffrey Bland. A couple of other experts in the field. They're real pioneers in this industry. We have Dr. Michael Greger, who I spoke about briefly. He wrote the book How Not to Die. It's a really deep dive into a lot of the bigger issues that Americans face: heart disease, lung disease, cancer, all these different topics. He kind of talks about how food plays a role in it, what you can do to better your health, how each type of food, each type of fruit may benefit you in some way. Dr. Mark Hyman is also a phenomenal author. He's written several things. He has a podcast. Vanny Hari, she runs a blog called The Food Babe. She also has several books out. She's a huge pioneer for the food industry, has petitions for big brands like Chick-fil-A, Kraft Food to remove some ingredients from their menu items. So these are all experts. Again, if you wanted to take a picture of this or write them down. But anyways, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I hope that was some valuable information. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Mercedes, and if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, that's my handle. Yes, you can. My website is here. You can always take a picture of the QR code, and my website will pop up on your phone. I have business cards, and I will be here for a few minutes after if you guys have any questions, if you want to chat. And before I forget, so the lovely ladies at Brighter Day did our display here. It's gorgeous. So I recommended a couple of different products that they offer at the store. So since we spoke about coffee a lot, I love this. It's orosmatic. It's actually mushroom coffee. It tastes just like coffee, but it's made out of mushrooms. It's organic. And there's so much power in mushrooms, maybe next chocolate mushrooms. This is a fantastic brand if you want to try each color is different functionality. They because yes, lime is made in chocolate, which is really good for brain function. So if you wanted to focus in on something or you want to start your day with that, you're separating some low anxiety or something, maybe you want to focus on balance and everything is high. Sheet in it, that's what we talk about. So these are all really good. A little mixer. You want to just add one at a time. Talk about coconut oil, coconut and oat milk here. These snacks, these are my personal favorite. Such a good, like, all the good. invite you to do a little shopping maybe. But once again, thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you for speaking. Oh, this one, coffee. Oh,